down that way. Chris, welcome back. Great to chat as always. And man, I don't know if you saw this coming. 3-9 to 6-0. What's the vibe down there around this Pitt team right now?
The vibes are pretty high, fellas. It's kind of crazy right now. I didn't see 6-0 coming. I did think this would be a rebound year. I mean, you looked at the 2 years before, and even when you went to Keaton Slow as a quarterback, you were able to get a 9-win season, a Sun Bowl win, and I was thinking like, hey, I don't think that 3-9 is the future at Pitt. I think that it's more of the bump in the road. At least the start has shown that is the case. They're already bowl eligible. They're, they've handled their business, and they've bounced back from some rough competitions. They've shown to be resilient, even with a lot of new faces around this team. So I think that, but I think the vibes are, everyone's really impressed by the fact that Cade Bell's offense has really gotten off to a hot start, despite its very different style than anything Pat Narduzzi has done before. And Eli Holstein, the young quarterback, the redshirt freshman, who no one was really sure about what he got here. And I think everyone agrees he still has things to clean up. But for a redshirt freshman in his first 6 starts, and up until his last game, he had 3 passing touchdowns in each contest. I think everyone's impressed by how he's going, and I think everyone's eyes are on, hey, can he improve? Can this be the floor? And he has a much higher ceiling. That's what I think everyone's looking for at Pitt right now to see if as they try to step into the second half of their season.
Yeah, Holstein's been pretty darn good. Pretty darn good, all things considered this year for Pitt. Should be an interesting quarterback matchup. And obviously Syracuse and Pitt, they play every year, Chris. They played every year since 1955. They played a million times. Yet, it doesn't always feel like there's been great anticipation for this game every year. This year, I'm feeling it, man. I don't know about you. Like 6-0, 5-1. I'm feeling more excited, at least from a Syracuse perspective, about Cuse and Pitt than I can recall. Are you getting the same sense down there on the other side of things?
I think there's a general excitement. I think part of it is the national conversation. Pitt and Syracuse have been together for such a long time that stems back long past the ACC. And the problem is right now is just the ACC is just not the talk of the country. Heck, you had an undefeated champion in the conference not even invited to the college football playoffs last year. Mm-hmm. And however you feel about Florida State, that had never happened. And it's been crazy. So when you got a 6-0 team in Pitt and a 5-1 team in Syracuse, you think that, in a primetime game, you think that the country might be like, hey, let's stop in and check this out. But people are playing it off. And, hey, I think that's just what happens with the ACC because of the 4 big conferences right now in football. It's the one that people like to downplay the most. But personally, as a person who just really enjoys football, I think this is a very intriguing matchup. You got 2 very talented, very successful quarterbacks in the first half of the season, duking it out in an old-school rivalry game, primetime football, and I think that deserves a lot of attention. These are talented teams. And listen, the winner of this game is going to have the edge over the other as moving forward as far as getting to the ACC championship game, which honestly, I think that everyone should be looking at right now as seeing as a wide-open contest. Miami's at the top there, and Clemson's right after them. But Pitt's got a shot at Clemson. If Pitt wins this game, they get a shot at Clemson later in the season. If Syracuse wins this game, they're putting themselves in a position where one slip-up, and they're right in it as well. So the ACC, I think, is a better football conference than people are giving it credit for, and there's a chance for both of these teams to put on an example of that tomorrow night at Acrisure Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, Pitt, it's a tough road they've got, but they've got Clemson and SMU. I mean, 2 teams that need to be beat at some point. Syracuse wraps up the regular season with Miami, so they all have chances anyway to take out some of these teams at the top. I don't know about you. Like, I look at it, I think it's those 3 teams right now when you look at SMU, Pitt, or SMU, Clemson, and Miami, and I'd toss Pitt and Syracuse in as the other 2 teams that maybe have a shot, right, if it breaks right, to make a move in this league going forward.
No, yeah, it's funny. I was watching the ACC network over the Pitt's bye week, and they were doing a segment on who are the top challengers for Miami, and they just put Clemson and SMU, and I'm like, there's an undefeated team in Pitt. There's a one-loss team. What's going on here? But I think part of it is a lot of football, a lot of college football is reputation, it's history, and let's face it, Pitt and Syracuse haven't been the dominant forces of the ACC. Though I will say Pitt has had they've had, I think they have the second most successful team in the conference in the last decade behind Clemson as far as wins and success and all. But I look at what they've been able to put together. As a history, I think that's where a lot of the weight that that people are putting on it when they try to downplay either of these teams. But both of these teams have positioned themselves to prove things moving forward. Now, here's the thing. You talked about Syracuse ends the season with Miami. Pitt's got Syracuse. They got SMU the next week. They got Louisville still on the schedule. Clemson still on the schedule. These are some serious opponents to beat. And Pitt has had some remarkable comebacks. Yeah, I was there in Cincinnati when they were down 21 points in the third quarter, and then they just stormed back and won in Cincinnati. Still, to me, their most impressive win. I was there covering them, the backyard brawl. They're playing West Virginia at home. West Virginia gets a kind of a really controversial call. It puts them up 10 late in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes to go, and then all of a sudden, Eli Holstein turns it on for a second straight week, leads a comeback, and then they start winning games without having to come back. They beat North Carolina pretty comfortably. And then, when all season long, it was the offense carrying the team. 2 weeks ago when they played Cal at home, it was the defense carrying the team, and they showed, hey, we're also an impressive unit. I think that's where Pitt is hoping to find a balance moving forward, where it's like, can they have a game, can they have a few games, because they're going to need them, where the offense is playing really well while the defense is playing really well from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. If they can get both of those at the same time, this Pitt Panther team can be very dangerous.
Yeah, as we got Chris Carter from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette with us, I think that's an interesting point. Last time out against Cal, that was a very different style of game. That felt more like 5-6 years ago Pitt than what we'd seen here of late for Pitt. Like the crazy high-scoring games with West Virginia and Cincinnati. What did that tell you that they were able to win a different way this last time out?
It tells me that the defense has still got a lot to it. This is very much a younger team than what Pitt's had in a lot of years. You got guys like redshirt sophomore Kyle Lewis at linebacker, who's just been playing out of his mind. He flies all over the field. He's making tackles for losses. He's sacking the quarterback. He's getting interceptions. He's breaking up passes. He's doing everything and more. And then you got guys like Rasheem Biles, who didn't even play in that game, by the way, also playing really well. Braylon Lovelace, all these guys, either redshirt sophomores or younger, and they're making plays up front. And then the defensive line, they're starting to get healthy again. Sean Fitzsimmons was the guy that was expected to be a leading force for them. Missed like the first 4 or 5 games, came back in. I think he missed the first 4 games. The first 2 games that he's been back, he's really changed the tone of that defensive front for the Pitt Panthers. And you have that with young cornerbacks and other rising guys on defense. They're finding ways to get better, and that should scare teams because this Pitt defense has been pretty aggressive. And I don't think it shouldn't scare Kyle McCord because he's a heck of a player. But I'm saying, like, I think that this Pitt team right now, they've got a lot of aspects to it that have not hit the players who haven't hit their ceilings as far as their ability to make plays on defense. And I would not be shocked if more and more guys start to poke their head up and as serious playmakers in this defense moving forward.
Yeah, McCord's been reasonably unflappable so far, so it'll be interesting to watch him going against a defense ascending here. What of Pitt's offensive line here, Chris? I know some guys got banged up last time out. Anything serious there, or they expect the normal group this week?
Well, I do think we still need to see what happens with this group. Branson Taylor suffered a serious injury. Will he be back? Well, again, it appeared serious. We are not privy to injury information during the week. Pat Narduzzi notorious for that. Unless the guy's season is done, he will not say what their injury status is. In fact, Pat Narduzzi talked to us yesterday at the facility, and brought up Branson Taylor. So maybe he does play this week. I just remember watching his injury 2 weeks ago at Cal and being like, that looks a little rough. But as far as their offensive line, I think that Pitt's offensive line is a group that has been finding a way under their new O-line coach, Jeremy Darbo, to get better each week. They have a lot of, like the rest of the team, they have a lot of guys that are new and improving and are finding their roles and getting better at things. But I think they've been the group that have been kind of like, hey, they can do enough to not get Eli Holstein killed and to allow Desmond Reed to be a playmaker, because to me, he is the straw that stirs the drink. If you remember 2 years ago when Pitt's offense was going ballistic on people, it was Izzy Abanikanda, who's now with the New York Jets, who was going off and setting records. Like, he broke Tony Dorsett's single-game rushing record, in a game 2 years ago. Desmond Reed isn't. I don't think he's as fast as Izzy, but he's like a very, very quick hair behind him. And I think he's more phenomenal in Cade Bell's passing offense, and that's what makes him a real weapon that Syracuse is going to have to know where he is every time he lines up on the field.
Yeah, that's the guy I wanted to ask you about, Chris. I mean, and I think what stands out to me is what you just said is his versatility. Like, he'll return a kick for you. He'll be running the ball. He'll be out in pass routes. How many different ways have they been able to get him involved this season, and how much of the offense, when you look at what Holstein's doing, is running through what Reed does?
I mean, a lot of it. And I will say this: I think they're gonna pull him back from special teams moving forward because Desmond Reed's a smaller player. You don't want to expose him too much. You want to find the prime spaces to get his reps in because football's a physical game. You're gonna tire guys out, and he's a smaller body type of running back. He's not like Najee Harris or the Pittsburgh Steelers where you can just throw him in and he's going to truck through 5 guys and then stay on the entire game. But Desmond Reed's the weapon that you want to stay fresh throughout the game. And I think you saw that in the West Virginia and Cincinnati games. When they got through those games, he was a huge reason why they won, maybe the biggest reason why they won. But then when they played Youngstown State, they rested him because I think they wanted to let him recover from those games. So you're going to see him used still a ton, but maybe not every single play. And I think that's where Syracuse is going to have to be ready because when he lines up, he'll line up in the slot. He'll line up in the backfield. Be aware of him. Even when he starts to look like he's a blocker, I think that's when he's most dangerous. When he runs a delayed route, if you have a linebacker on him, good luck. Like you need a linebacker that's fast in space, that's quick and smart. Because even if you're quick and you're fast, he looks to try to catch you looking the other way or just lulls you to sleep just long enough so that he can just run that quick little Texas route, breaks over the middle. All of a sudden, he has inside leverage on you, and then good luck because you're in a foot race with a guy that can beat most people in a foot race. So that's where Desmond Reed's going to catch you. He's very smart as well as quick and fast. And if you give him those underneath underneath route options, Eli Holstein will be happy to take them and let Des Reed go the rest of the way. Yeah,
two of the best kind of like dual threat running backs in the league. When you look at what LaQuinn Allen's doing, and when you look at what Des Reed is doing, so I think that's going to be a fascinating matchup to see which guy can have more success tomorrow night. All right, Chris. Before I let you go, what do you think decides this game? What do you think this comes down to tomorrow night? Which way are you leaning?
I think that one thing that you saw Syracuse do last year, they were able to run with the tight end and quarterback, and he was able to do all that. If Syracuse can run the ball, that's going to be the factor that's it. Syracuse has not been one of the best running teams in the ACC, but if they can get it going against Pitt's defense, that's going to allow McCord to have a much more balanced look. But I do think that with the way things can play out, if Pitt's able to get its offense going like it has in 5 of its first 6 games, it's going to put Syracuse in that pressure. And I think Pitt is used to, at this point, playing teams that want to throw the ball a lot more and being able to make plays and create turnovers and get after the quarterback. Guys like Jimmy Scott, they're getting better at that stuff. Syracuse needs to not let Pitt feel comfortable in guessing when and how they're going to pass. Run the football, do that effectively, balance your offense. You can throw Pitt off balance and take control of the game.
I just think we got a really interesting game on our hands tomorrow night, Chris. Thanks so much for the insight on the Panthers. Enjoy it tomorrow night, and I'm sure we'll talk again down the line. But thanks a lot for hopping on.
Thanks, fellas.
There is Chris Carter from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I can't get away from the idea that this is going to be a really, really interesting game coming up tomorrow night in a way that it hasn't always been on Syracuse's trips down there, where it's been just ground into dust. Not tomorrow night.